Hey there internet people, close that tab with porn on it and welcome to today's video. So I'm gonna quickly brush over one thing. This video is basically gonna be it's kind of like my update video that I did last year when I announced my YouTube hiatus. It's going to be a one take, it's going to be unedited just so it's easier for me to upload. So apologies if I say and ah a lot or I look at my notes that I have here, because there are just some things I need to say really. I mean, you've probably seen the title of this video, so you know pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. But about 4 days ago, the world learned about the tragedy, which was the passing of Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. Now, I took the news pretty hard when it was announced, so I made a spontaneous 10-minute long video and posted it on my Twitter, just talking about it all and how I felt or whatever. But as I am with all unscripted videos, whenever I try to do an unscripted video, the video was somewhat mediocre. I'm not sure I fully got across what I was trying to say, and I think I said some things I didn't really mean, or just forgot some things which I do mean. Also, apologize if I look over here again, because same problems I had with the other video. I look at my face. Maybe I can try and change the brightness of it. Let's get back on topic. So basically what I decided to do was take some time, just make my emotions more calm down, and I'm going to change over my hand. Basically do a video the proper way, the traditional way that I do videos. You know, I actually spend time, I write it out, etc., just so I can get everything I need to across, really, as well as giving a proper release on the YouTubes. Now, truth be told, ever since I announced my YouTube hiatus, I have actually tried to film 1 or 2 videos about other topics, but they never even got uploaded. They never even got edited, if they weren't, like this, a one take. And I don't really want that to be the case with this video, because Linkin Park is my favourite band. So I kind of feel like I should, I have to make my voice heard in an instance. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to structure this video in a sense of I'm going to talk about how I discovered Chester Bennington and Linkin Park, everything in between leading up to 4 days ago. So yeah. Now when I was younger and I was going to school, I remember one day my mum would just drove past me, picked me up or whatever. The radio was playing, and on the radio came a song. Now, I instantly loved this song. Musically, I just thought, as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old boy that I was at the time, I was like, oh fuck, this song's great. I probably didn't swear as much as it, but regardless, I thought the song was fantastic. I loved it instantly, and part of the reason why I loved that song so much was the singer. I didn't know who the singer was at the time. I didn't even know who the band was, or singer was. But the chorus, the guy really went in, when the chorus came in, he just let his voice show, and I was impressed instantly. So yeah, that happened, and I would hear the song over and over again throughout life, throughout the year or whatever. And I never actually learned who it was. I never learned anything. And eventually I found I was watching a YouTube video, just a random YouTube video that had the song as its background music. And I'm like, oh, it's that song again. I look at the description, and there it says, Linkin Park, Numb. Numb was my first Linkin Park song. I then watched the music video, which, bear in mind, the performance part of it, at least, is actually quite based around Chester, which I guess, seeing as how impressed I was with him in the beginning, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So, and from there, I listened to songs like Breaking the Habit, Bleed It Out, What I've Done, which I actually didn't actually know was by them at first. I watched Transformers, and I heard that watched their music, like, oh right, they did the same song, okay. So yeah, that was that. And eventually, it got to the point where I had listened to every single Linkin Park song there was, not through iTunes or anything like that, or radio or CDs, but through freaking YouTube videos, because every single Linkin Park song you can probably find on YouTube, like all music these days. And from there, and this went on for months and months and months, and from there I finally brought my first Linkin Park album, Meteora, which I bought Meteora because Meteora had Numb on it. And that was like the first CD I ever bought. Like, it's ridiculous. And from there, I brought the albums Hybrid Theory. I brought Minutes to Midnight because that's basically when I discovered Linkin Park. I'm going to estimate that I discovered them in 2008 when I was about 11 years old, I reckon, maybe. But I kept on buying these CDs until I owned every single CD release that you can probably find these days on the shelves of H&V, save for one of their live albums, because at the time I didn't really care much about live albums. Sorry, I like studio albums more. I mean, I slowly became more and more obsessed with them. I even liked their side projects. Fort Minor, Dead by Sunrise, great bands, great albums. Everything about Linkin Park was awesome to me at the time. A few years down the line, they finally announced a new album, 1,000 Suns, and I pre-ordered that shit instantly. Like, I was down, like I pre-ordered that stuff instantly. And because of, release dates and the UK Postal Service, I actually, this is quite a real surreal thing. I remember that I actually got the album in the post, like one day before the album was supposed to be released. And I remember bringing the CD up and listening to it while I was sitting up in that bed. Just sitting up to it. I had the CD player right next to me. I was playing CD out loud while I was doing my maths homework, even though my dad had specifically told me not to listen to the CD while I was doing my maths homework. I didn't care. I did it anyway. I was a rebel. So yeah, I was just listening to this CD, and I remember when the last song on the album came on, The Messenger, and I just remember that I started crying. Not proper balls out crying, just a few tears here and there, but I finally realised that I had loved this band so much for the past few years. They had become so much to me, and I had finally had got my hands on a new physical CD for even more songs listened to that were by them. It just occurred to me what this meant to me. And then further on from there, I finally saw them live at the Men Arena in Manchester for the first time with my friend James. My dad actually took both of us out there, and we sat up in the stands, and he sat next to us. And me and James were we were into it. We were probably having a good time singing the words, etc. I would just look over to my dad sometimes, and he would just be there, crossed arms, not really my cup of tea, but here I am anyway. Yeah. But yeah, that was a proper fun night. I must have brought tons of merch as well. I mean, now that I think about it, that pretty much brings us up to current day, really, because after yes, of course, they released several more albums down the line, more songs to listen to. This year they released their album One More Light, which I loved, again, because I'm that much of a Linkin Park fan, I guess. And a few months back, they finally announced that they were playing Birmingham for the first time in what felt like years, pretty much. And I booked tickets. I was I'm finally gonna see my favorite band in my hometown arena for the first time ever. This is gonna be dope. Yeah, I was super excited. Like I remember like walking into the actual arena, like having finally got my ticket stamped and everything, just holding like both my arms up in the air, just being like, "Yes, I'm here." I mean, the performance itself as well, it was so good. But this would have actually been Chester Bennington's last show. I reconnected with some old friends of mine that I met at the previous Barclaycard Arena show. We all went to see them together. We got tickets. I actually got tickets for the front standing section, which meant that the band were like literally only a few meters away from me. Like there could be points if I pushed past the crowd like enough. I could have actually like held Chester Bennington's hand or something. Like that's how close I was. I mean, it was simply put the best show I ever seen. In comparison to past shows I've seen in arenas, they always put some big LED screens up, displaying some kind of art across them. But this one was more lighting orientated. It was more lighting rig orientated because the lighting rig came down and did all this cool stuff. They played more piano versions and acoustic versions of songs than I thought they would. They even threw a few Fort Minor verses in between their songs, etc. I think they did a live performance of some remixes from off their remix albums, if my memory serves correctly. It was basically a lot more of an honest performance. It was just them and the music and the fans, and that kind of stuff really kind of hit home me because I was like, yeah, you don't really need LED screens to make a good performance, don't you? Now, a while later after this gig, and about a week ago, my parents went on a camping trip to Wales, and still reeling from the night that I had because it was such a good night. I need to stop talking about it, but it was generally a super cool night. I decided that I would listen to Linkin Park. Basically, I ended up listening to Linkin Park on the way there, while we were driving around, and on the way back. Bearing in mind that the way there and back to where we were staying was like a 2.5 hour drive. So yeah, on the last day, which yeah, but I listened to albums like Linkin, Hybrid Theory, Meteora. And when we got back, and I was basically unpacking, and I was making like a plan and a list of things to do. Like I'm going to upload all the pictures and videos I've taken from my time down there. I'm going to do all this. I was unpacking. I'm just looking through Twitter randomly, and I just see the headline of a tweet, and it says something to the effect of Chester Bennington has committed suicide by hanging. And instantly, my heart stops. It literally feels like my heart isn't beating. And I instantly assume that this is a hoax. This has got to be some kind of joke, alright? There's been hoaxes about people like John Bon Jovi in the past. Like this is got to be some kind of sick, twisted fucking joke. It can't be real. And then I look online across other forms of social media, and people are posting about it. People doing like RIP Chester posts, and that didn't really make me feel good. I went downstairs to my parents. I told them that, Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, I think he may have just died. And then they held me. They tried to console me a bit, and my mum was reaffirmed in my initial belief in saying it could be a hoax. It could be a hoax. It could be not true. And then my dad just walks back in the room on his phone and just simply says, "It's on BBC News." So I think that pretty much confirmed it for me. I had just learned that Chester Bennington had left us, and that all but confirmed it. I went upstairs and I sat in my room and I just figured I'd listen to one of their songs in a PAPYRUS, because it felt like the right thing to do in this instance. I made the mistake of listening to One More Light, which is basically a song about someone a loved person, passing away, and you paying respect to them. And that song is good. I'm not saying that, but you know, I cried like instantly. All the emotions that I was feeling at that point, finally just hearing the song begin, and as soon as Chester started singing, as soon as his vocals came in, everything just came out. I tried to take a Snapchat video of me listening to it, and it all came out. So yeah, that was pretty. I became a walking. I always become like a cliche whenever stuff like that happens. My parents took me to Lichfield, the city of Lichfield, which is usually like a very happy place for me. Like, I go there to be happy, basically. And all I basically ended up doing there was walking around miserable. We had a drink and a beer. None of us really said anything, and then we went home, and that was it. Never before has a celebrity passing away affected me, and probably every single one of us, in such a way, you could say. Because the guy was a fucking icon. An inspiration that we all looked up to and that we all adored. I mean, I remember whilst at the Brum gig I went to, my group got talking to another group of people. You know, we're all socialising to each other and we're all talking about Linkin Park, and we talked about, you know, the history of Linkin Park, like the fact that they used to be called Hybrid Theory and Zero were brought up, etc. One of the guys in the other groups, I do remember this quite clearly, just stops the conversation and just simply says out loud, "That's Chester," with a look of shock on his face, like pointing up off the stage. We all turn around. We can't see him, but the fact that someone simply seeing or thinking they see him generates such a reaction probably speaks boundaries about what he means to us. I mean, of all the people I spoke to when the news broke, one of the people who popped up to me on social media was the person of my said group, who I do speak to the most when it comes to social media, I'll be honest. Out of that group. It gets confusing, I'm sorry. And she just said that the news is heartbreaking, but she thanked me just for sharing his last show with them, and that she would be forever grateful. I think that one of the reasons why Chester Bennington was loved was, well, firstly because of his voice, his incredible, credible voice. I mean, as I said before, it's one of the reasons why I even fell in love with the band in the first place. His voice was soulful at times, passionate, aggressive, like it was literally like everything a good voice should be. And to top it all off, I'm not pretty sure that anyone's ever actually noticed this, you put any kind of music and get Chester to sing over it, it will just work brilliantly. I mean, throughout his career we've seen him sing along for such song genres as rock, metal, I'm reading off here, grunge, hip-hop, punk, a cappella, soul, folk, blues, country, electronic, industrial, experimental, acoustic, house, dubstep, pop, and they even had one reggae-influenced song on A Thousand Suns. I mean, even when they were on Good Mythical Morning like a few months ago, they showed again how well his voice goes well with lullaby music and slow rock / R&B music. His lyrics were just so, well, quite frankly, his lyrics were so wonderfully angsty, but they spoke to tons of people and they got them through tons and tons of sad times. Like, literally the whole world over, people were just listening to his lyrics and just getting better. Like, that's the kind of stuff that he wrote about. And the thing that I seem to remember the most about him was just who he was as a person. There are several video compilations dedicated to the funny moments of him and the band. On top of that, several people have just come out in the news recently and just mean to pay no respect. Of course, not just literally every single rock and metal band ever, but other musicians from other genres such as Rihanna, Pharrell, MGK, Kiera, I really hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, Stormzy and Chance the Rapper, and even more people like that, such as Jimmy Kimmel, Dwayne Johnson and Channing Tatum. He was just your average fearless, down-to-earth dude with not just tons of charisma, but talent, so much talent. And he would always smile, and he would always joke, and he was also such a family man as well. I mean, he had 6 children, which is something that I didn't even know until, a few weeks ago. I didn't know that he was a father to 6 children. That really took me back. I did not know that. The fact that he could achieve all of the things that he did, where he could literally say that he is singing for literally one of the most biggest rock bands in the world, despite all the things that he went through in his youth, just makes you want to love the guy even more. I mean, for those who don't know, he suffered pretty heavily from drug and sexual abuse from a very young age, and after finding catharsis through the lyrics that he wrote, after he moved on from all of that kind of really dark and horrible shit, he wasn't afraid to let it all show. Well, except for, whatever finally led him to make the choice that he made. No one even noticed anything out of the ordinary, even in the days leading up to his passing. Personally, I will always miss Chester for being the leading force behind the gateway drug that got me into the music I like, which led me to introduce myself to all the friends that I like, for all the YouTubers I watch, and literally everything else you can think of under the sun. I would not be who I am today if it weren't for Chester Bennington. Trust me, I've been there, and to be honest, the concept of suicide, I mean, it's an issue that does hit somewhat close to home. So I know that when no, sorry, it's something I should say first. I just want to say to those, just some last thoughts I want to give, really, because to wrap this up. There are several people online, basically, who are basically kind of, maybe not intentionally, but they are somewhat insulting his memory because of the fact that he left behind the 6 children. And to those people, I say this. As someone who has suffered from mental health in the past for a total of 6 months without end, which got so bad that I had to move back home with my parents, I had to receive therapy, which is new for me, I wouldn't even dress myself properly, I would be lazy all day, and when it came to walking around outside, whether it was in town or where it was just walks around the block, I had to have my arms linked with my mum, because I literally just couldn't motivate myself to move around that much. I can personally attest that the reason he left behind his children is because it literally was that bad. I've been there, as I was saying before, and to be honest, the concept of suicide is one that hits close to home. So I know that when the idea enters your head, you're not thinking about your friends, you're not thinking about your family, you're not thinking about how other people will be affected, because after being trapped in your own personal hell for however long it is without end, to the point where you wake up and these issues are staring you right in the face when you wake up, and they're there when you go to bed, and they don't leave you throughout all the 12 hours that you're awake, and you deal with this for however long it is, months, maybe even years, maybe, I don't know. All you think about in the end, not to make a pun, but in the end, all you think about are such scary and life-changing thoughts, such as, I can't take this anymore. One last thing I say, if you are suffering from similar issues, please talk to someone. I mean, I personally, as someone who doesn't really tend to leave his house that much, I do have several friends online who have said to me, if you're feeling like this and you're feeling like this, pop up and speak to me, no matter what. Just talk about, the feelings. And I personally think that that's the best thing to do with any kind of problem. It's best to talk about your problems because, I don't know, it makes you feel better, I guess. I have friends who will speak to me about anything, and it really does help. I think I'm even going to put some links of in the description for you guys to look up for, like suicide prevention, stuff like that as well. So I'll just say one more thing. Well, two more things really. I'm not sure how I'm going to structure this, but here it goes. When I basically said online, and I posted like how upset I was about this, a few friends popped up to me, as I said before. One of them was someone who didn't even know who wasn't even a Linkin Park fan per se. But he was just seeing. He just saw that I was upset, and he messaged me. That's the kind of attitude that we need to have more with issues such as this. Really need to be able to activate ourselves and wake up, because mental health it's not a joke. The fact that someone like Chester Bennington, who would seem so happy but was apparently fighting his own battle, like, we need to take a stand, I guess. The one other thing I say about the memory of Chester Bennington, one other friend who said to me, I was talking to her and I was basically saying all this stuff about, I'm gonna miss him like terribly. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for him. I wouldn't like all of the things I would if, Linkin Park didn't give me that particular confidence. I wouldn't do all this stuff. And she said to me something to the effect of, like, you have a right to be upset about what happened, etc. But what you also should do afterwards is try to turn those tears of sadness into tears of joy. You need to celebrate his legacy, and I think that's what all of us Linkin Park fans need to do. So yeah, that's all I really need to say. It's been a really tough week for all of us. It's getting somewhat easier for me. I'm finding it easier to listen to Linkin Park songs again. So yeah, I'll just do my intro and I think I'll end it here. So, follow my social medias if you want. And in case I don't see you later, internet people, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and rest in peace. My icon, Chester Charles Bennington. Goodbye.